without further ado, I'm going to hand you over to our next speaker, Cllr Mike Whitby, who's also the British National Party regional organiser for the North West. Over to you, Mike.
Thanks, Eddie. Good evening, folks. Thanks for inviting me. I don't know, can you hear me okay at the back?
Yeah.
Great. Hate shouting. I'm going to be talking tonight about fifth columnists. And first of all, before I kick off, I've got a brief description in terms of Wikipedia, what they regard as fifth columnists. A group of people who clandestinely undermine a larger group, such as a nation, from within. A clandestine operation is an intelligence or military operation carried out in such a way that the operation goes unnoticed. In short, these people are spies, and they're operating right under our noses. So, apologies for anyone who already knows about this stuff. You may know some of it, you know, might know all of it, might know a hell of a lot more than me. Basically my own research. And I think we all know some of it. But what I'm trying to do here is get information across and try and give you the reasons why these people are doing what they're doing. You know, it's a lot of it is, you know, surmise and supposition, but based on the evidence that's available, you know, you can draw certain conclusions. So, just to start off, to give you a flavour of what we're talking about, I'm sure anyone that's sort of my age or older has seen the 39 Steps film or Notorious by Alfred Hitchcock. Yeah? You all seen that? Well, you probably know that the plots of both of those films revolve around fifth columnists. Spies within a country who've snuck in there and they're up to all sorts of dirty dealings. And they're getting away with it because they've got connections. You know, they might be the Lord Mayor's mate or whatever, you know, and they're well in with the local politicians. So no one can even believe that there's any possibility that they're spies. Okay, those are two Hollywood films, as I say, but back to real life. It does sound hard to believe, especially in peacetime, if you like. You know, our parents went right through the war and they had all these situations where they said, you know, the walls have ears, so don't say too much. But we're not in a wartime, apart from Afghanistan, but we haven't got a war on our doorstep. So we tend to relax. But there are people out there, I'm not trying to make anybody scared about it, but, you know, I'll go on to show what they're doing. These people are conspiring to destroy our country and our people. And what they're up to is nothing less than genocide. That might sound harsh, but I'll give you a Wikipedia description of genocide. Generally speaking, genocide does not necessarily mean the immediate destruction of a nation, except when accomplished by mass killings of all members of a nation. It's intended rather to signify a coordinated plan of different actions aiming at the destruction of essential foundations of the life of national groups, with the aim of annihilating the groups themselves. The objectives of such a plan would be the disintegration of the political and social institutions of a culture, language, national feelings, religion, and the economic existence of national groups, and the destruction of the personal security, liberty, health, dignity, and even the lives of the individuals belonging to such groups. Is anyone in any doubt whatsoever that this is happening to our country and our people? No. Absolutely not. So what are fifth columnists? Well, there are and have been fifth columnists operate in Britain for a very long time. We've got Freemasons, common purpose agents, Bilderbergers, and Illuminati. Let's just work on those four. Now you might think, oh, this is all secretive stuff. Well, yeah, it is secretive stuff. But it's not fantasy or make-believe. It's all there. All this information is available for anyone who wants to find it. In fact, all of these people, just as a quick aside, they all have a motto. All of these groups have a motto of having things hidden in plain sight. In other words, if it's right under your nose, you won't even suspect there's anything wrong with it. and they all do that. So first of all, we've got the Illuminati. It's a highly secretive organisation which mostly consists of banking families. They're the puppet masters of world governments, and they're the leading players in the New World Order. The Illuminati was created in 1770 by a fellow named Adam Weishaupt. Weishaupt, however you pronounce that. He set it up as a revolutionary organisation. He and his group set out to infiltrate Freemasonry, and within 10 years they'd infiltrated every single Masonic chapter in the world, and they had control of it, of every chapter in the world. Since then, from that point on, Freemasons have carried out the orders of the Illuminati, whether they even realise it or not. Because Freemasons, I'll come to them in a minute, they have all sorts of levels. But I think 33rd level is the top one, and they'll only give them a certain amount of information at each level. And if they're a good lad and they keep their nose clean, then they'll move up to the next level. They'll give them a bit more information. They never want to give them too much, so they don't really know what's going on until they climb higher up the greasy pole. So, incidentally, the Illuminati believe that the world should only consist of 500 million people. 500 million. That's half a billion. At the moment, there's nearly 7 billion people in the world. So apparently, according to them, 6.5 billion of us are surplus to requirements. So it makes you wonder what they're going to do. On to the Bilderbergers. The Bilderbergers are also a highly secretive organisation, and they're politicians and industrialists. They created the European Union. Make no mistake about that. It's not some airy-fairy little plan by European politicians. These people told them to do it. They even developed the Treaty of Rome and the Treaty of Maastricht before the Second World War ended. Moved the money out of Germany, through Spain, into America, left it there until the war ended, then brought it back to Europe, put it in Switzerland, and then started the Bilderberg group off. Ian Fleming, who wrote the James Bond books, used the Bilderbergers as the model for his evil criminal fraternity Spectre. So anyone who's read James Bond books, that evil group of people that the gaffer used to get together, they're effectively what Ian Fleming regarded as the Bilderbergers. And he was actually a spy himself, Ian Fleming, so we knew that these things firsthand. Now we're on to the Freemasons. The Masonic Order of Freemasons consists of businessmen, politicians, policemen, civil servants. In fact, from the 17th to the 20th century, midway through the 20th century, virtually every man that aspired to climb the greasy pole in business or public service was a Freemason. Just about everyone. All the way from the church warden and the vicar to bankers, bishops and kings. Without even realising it, most of these people believed that they were doing it for their country, and the vast majority of them were patriotic. Didn't even realise that they were being manipulated by the Illuminati and other groups before the Illuminati even started. We've got the Illuminati and the Bilderbergers have a term for them. I'm sorry, I don't apologise if there's any Freemasons in the room. All I would say is do your own research, don't take my word for it. The Bilderbergers and Illuminati called them useful idiots because they're there to do their bidding. Two of these useful idiots were Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels. Both of them were Freemasons, and they were financed by the bankers, the banking dynasties to create communism. And that's always, in the past, that was always a shock to me. And I thought, why would the bankers want to finance somebody to create communism? Surely that's the antipode of capitalism. But when you look into the details, finance them to create communism, to keep us all under the thumb, to keep us in our place, so that we'll just do as we're told under the guise of freedom. Because we think, oh yeah, we've got the union on our side. Who controls the unions? Same people. So, that was a culture shock to me, I can tell you, a few years back. Not long before I joined the party. Next one is common purpose. Anyone in the room not know about common purpose? No? All heard the name? Okay. Common purpose is a registered charity, believe it or not. Now, I believe the main reason for it to be registered charity is so that we can't send freedom of information requests. Because if it's registered charities are outside of that control. And they receive masses of amounts of money from the government, taxpayers' money, just so that they can do what they regard as train leaders for the post-democratic era. In the post-democratic era. So at least they appear to acknowledge that we don't live in a democracy anymore. They'll recruit people who are high-ranking police officers, NHS workers, local government officers, all sorts of things. Young kids as young as 12 years of age. They'll recruit them if they see some kind of potential that they're in a position of influencing people. They'll bring them on board. Now, we reckon, the researchers reckon there's about at least 65,000 of these people spread all over Britain. On my laptop there, I've got a list of names on an Excel spreadsheet, which has only got just over 18,000 names on it. But that's 5 years old, that list. And it wasn't a complete list at the time. So although it's very secretive, they have their infiltrators as well. And one of them very kindly got us that list out. So anyway, what common purpose are the glue, if you like, that carries out the orders of the New World Order. These are the people who have their eyes and ears on every one of us in the workplace, on the street, making sure that we stick to political correctness. And it's mind control, first of all. And secondly, it's physical control. Because every last one of us today has got to think about something before you say it. Ooh, are they going to think that's racist? I mean, we don't generally in this room, but the people out there do. They're terrified to admit that they vote for the BNP in case someone says, you must be a racist, or some of them load of nonsense. And we discussed that a little bit earlier, didn't we? So, they're recruited for that position because that was the area where they were falling down in their plan of spreading communism around the world. They could do it at the top end just by bribing business people. The vast majority of the business people who are involved in these things in this country are doing it for money. They're getting bonuses to employ foreigners. Agencies, job agencies are getting paid nearly twice as much to place a foreign worker as they do to place a British worker. And what do people say? Look at that, all the Poles turn up for the job, but the British don't turn up. Why? Because the likes of Gap Employment Agency are getting paid nearly twice as much every single hour that person works as they do for a British person. So the Gap fella in our town, in Wrexham, drives around in a big fancy car. He couldn't give a damn. I don't think he's doing it for any sort of communist ideals or anything. He's too busy filling his blinking pocket and his wallet. And that's what the vast majority of them are doing. Last few years I've been involved in the architectural world. You go in just about any architectural office in this country and there's at least one African or Asian in there. Half the time they can't even speak the lingo properly. Never mind read a drawing or a specification. But they've been told, you give this fellow a job and you'll get these contracts. And all these same architects are working with huge building companies who are all working in the PFI scheme. Now, I'm sure you're familiar with the PFI, supposedly private finance investment initiative, I should say. That private finance means actually the taxpayer is going to pay it, but not today, because the bank provides it, The builder comes along to the bank and says, we've got a £10 million project here. The government has backed it, so how much will you give me for it? Not will you finance me to do the job like most business people have to do. How much are you going to buy this for? Because the government are going to be paying you back payments for 30 to 40 years on this. And you'll make 150 million out of it. So how much are you going to pay us for it? And they're going round to the highest bidder. And this is the biggest single reason why this country is in such massive debt. Gordon Brown introduced that, along with all the other Ponzi bloody pyramid schemes that he introduced. And the man should be in jail. He's every bit as bad as Blair, if not worse. Well, I don't know if anyone could be worse than Blair, but you know what I mean. Anyway, in 1920, these manipulators were struggling. As I said before, they're wondering, we've got control of the Masons, but still, no matter what they did, they couldn't get over the fact that most people in the Western world were focused on their family, God, and their country. And they couldn't do anything to stop that. And whilst they were focused on those three things, nationalism will always be around, because it's effectively looking after your own family. So they said, what are we going to do to stop that? We'll have to come up with some ideas. So they came up with, one of the ideas was political correctness, all the way back in the 1920s. It started in a think tank called the Frankfurt School in 1923. The purpose was to find a solution to their big problem of how they could spread communism. Now the Frankfurt School then got together, and they were a collection of Russians, Germans, and mainly Americans. They established this school in Frankfurt because that's where the main bankers were, and that's where their connections were. But they had something else in common as well, which I'll come back to later. The first one on the list, there's 11 points here, so I'd like you to just listen carefully and see if any of them sound familiar to you. First one is the creation of racialism offences to break down nationalist ideals, 1923. Second one is continual change to create confusion and destroy morale. Third one is the teaching of sex and homosexuality to children in 1923 to break up families and destroy moral values. 4, the undermining of schools and teachers' authority to encourage unrest within the youngsters. Huge immigration. Keep in mind the date. Huge immigration to destroy national identity and the destruction of national borders. Number 6, the promotion of excessive drinking to induce a helpless alcoholic nation that can easily be controlled. 7, emptying the churches to remove all belief systems that challenge the state's authority. Number 8, an unreliable legal system with a bias against the victim of crime. We're seeing that massively today, but this is a long, long time ago, 1923. Most of us in this room weren't even born. Number 9, dependency on the state or state benefits for total control of the masses. You're not going to vote against somebody who's paying you all this money for doing nothing. Number 10, control and dumbing down of the media. Only propagandist news would be allowed. That's because the same group of people own all of the newspapers, 99% of them anyway. And as we were discussing earlier, David, they won't let any news out. People say to us on the street, we never see you on the telly. You never write any letters into the newspaper? Of course we do. Some of us in this room will be writing 10 letters a week. How many of them actually get produced? Published? Hardly any. The only way you can do it is by kind of sneaking through the back door and not saying anything about the British National Party and being a little bit politically correct, but getting other messages in there. And I don't want us to become as devious as them buggers, to be honest with you, but that's how some people get around it. Number 11, the final one, encourage the breakdown of families, as the family and its roots are the links to a nation. So just those 11 items are what the Common Purpose and all of the other groups are promoting every day. And these people, particularly the Common Purpose one, anyone, you see school kids walking along in a group, and one of them says something, the other one says, "Oh, you can't say that, that's racist." They're absolutely paranoid about that. But they're not paranoid about teaching our little kids sex. So just remember, when you read or hear about teachers showing school children as young as 7 how to put on a condom onto a plastic penis in a classroom, or they tell infant school children stories about George and George, you'll understand that they're being taught the disgusting principles of the Frankfurt School. Why do young children need to know how to put a condom on?
They don't.
This is nothing but state paedophilia, and it's on a massive scale. Politicians want to reduce the age of consent so that they can't be prosecuted for having rent boys and girls. Also, these people are brainwashing our youth. These communist lecturers in colleges and schools and universities propagandize students with anti-British Marxist mantras and teach these pliable youngsters to demonize nationalism. They use the big lie of World War II, and I'm sure most of us, if you've done any research, you know how big a lie that is. It's about the prison camps, to convince people that nationalism is wrong. The truth is that nationalism is the most natural thing in the world. It's purely based on our instinctual desire to protect our own family and our extended families and those of our neighbours and friends. What could be more natural than that? Youngsters are also being taught that sexual perversion is normal and that it's okay to indulge in disgusting acts of depravity. They're also told that it's better to have mixed race couples than to stick to their own kind. But there's an old saying that says birds of a feather flock together. That's because throughout human nature, most people would rather be with their own kind. And the same applies to the animal kingdom. You don't get animals mixing together. They certainly don't mate with different species. Hollywood music videos, TV and newspapers are filled with pornography to brainwash. And this is a conscious thing. It's not accidental. It's not just the times we're living in. This is a conscious thing that's gone on from right throughout the 20th century to get our kids into the frame of mind that anything goes. That takes away the parental control. The parents say, "Oh, you shouldn't be doing that." Well, Fred Bloggs is doing it. Billy Brown's doing it. It's on the telly all the time. How can you tell your kids not to do something when they're bombarded with it all the time? Under the Frankfurt School idea, these kids are designed to be hedonists and, look after number one. Forget your family. It's what I want and what I need that's more important. There's even kids suing their parents for giving them a slap on the wrist, or teachers for doing, giving them the strap. Most of our generation were blinking battered by the cane or the strap for nothing, as it happens most of the time. But when will the British people say enough is enough? I absolutely, some people say, well, when it gets really tough, then they'll wake up. How much tougher does it need to get? I don't know what it's going to take, honestly, but, I'll just carry on and show you what I believe we should be doing anyway. We need to drive these evil monsters and their paedophile friends, because anyone who knows what they're doing and they keep on voting for them, they're paedophiles as well. Anyone who condones paedophilia is a paedophile. And we know how rife it is in the Labour Party in particular. Because in communism in general, it's rife. For the reasons of the Frankfurt School, the EU is absolutely full of perverts. The level of perverts in the European Union is absolutely astronomical. And that's a conscious thing as well. Because they get people like that so they can manipulate them. You hear stories about, and the girls may not like this, but you hear stories about some fella, a bigwig politician or whatever, and he's got a young girl on the side. And some fellas might think, oh, the jammy bugger. But that's not the British way. And even if that came out, it might destroy his family. His wife might accept it. Mine wouldn't, but that's another story. But if they put it about that he was the other way, and he was messing with people of his own sex, with men, or a woman with a woman, that's absolutely the pits. Or they're a paedophile. So they get these people into these situations so that they can dangle them like puppets. And, those people getting in there, they're just mostly doing it for the money and their strange perversions. Anyway, control of the masses by the New World Order, which is effectively what we're talking about. They openly call themselves the New World Order nowadays. That started with George Bush Sr. about 20 years ago when he openly started admitting, we're going to have a New World Order. And lots of them have said it since, including Gordon Brown and this clown that we've got now. The masses of the Western world have been controlled for a very long time, whether we realise it or not. One of the earliest records of control mechanism was the creation of the Bank of England. And that was in 1694. The bankers and ultimately the Rothschild family were quite literally given the right to print money and control the British monetary system. Nathan Meyer Rothschild said in 1820, quote, "I care not which puppet is placed on the throne of England to rule the empire on which the sun never sets. Excuse me, the man that controls Britain's money supply controls the British Empire, and I control the money supply." That was 1820 when he said that. And why didn't the politicians take the Bank of England back off them? Why didn't anyone do anything about it? Because if we're getting to know stuff about this now, they will have known at the time. In 1923, a fellow named Vladimir Jabotinsky, who was known as the father of the Zionist right, said, "Zionist colonization must either stop or else proceed regardless of the native population, which means that it can proceed and develop only under the protection of a power that is independent of the native population, behind an iron wall which the native population can't breach." In other words, keep the people in the dark, keep paying off the politicians, and we'll be okay. Britain was already in the grip of Zionism, and not long after this, we had a Zionist Prime Minister, Benjamin Disraeli, who once said, "The world is governed by very different personages from what is imagined by those who are not behind the scenes." Also, in 1896, a book was handed into the British Museum. I find this a really strange one. Handed into the British Museum by a man named Theodore Herzl. Do you notice the names? There's a distinction going on here. Theodore Herzl handed this book into the British Museum. The book was called The Protocols of the Learned Elders of Zion. Okay? Herzl always maintained that it was not his work. But he would never disclose the name of the author. The book sets out the plans for the Zionists to enslave and control the world, all of the Gentiles, that's non-Jews, or Goyim as they call us, in the Western world. And despite the shocking content and nature of this disgusting anti-British and anti-Christian publication, it was put on display in the British Museum. Now, who would have the power and influence to get this outrageous anti-British publication placed in the British Museum without even knowing who the author was? You try sending a book for publication now, they won't publish it, especially if it's in any way controversial, unless the author's prepared to put his name to it. Yet well over 100 years ago, these people had this thing published. Henry Ford in America got hold of it, and he put it out on his newspaper, the Dearborn Herald, I think it was called, Dearborn something. He did a weekly serialization of it, a damning one, to point out how outrageous it was that they were trying to destroy the world. And he also pointed out that that same group of people, the Zionists, owned every other paper in America. And they came at him with everything they could muster. It never stopped him. He eventually started putting a copy in every Ford car that was sold to wake up the world to what was going on. Sorry about that. So here we are now, after 2 world wars and the deaths of countless millions of innocent people. The New World Order has all but succeeded in conquering the world through lies and deceit. Excuse me. In 21st century Britain, we have several political parties, but they all sing the same Zionist tune. Conservative, Liberal, Labour, UKIP, Greens, SNP, Plaid Cymru. There's also the pretence of a British backlash through an organisation called the English Defence League, the EDL. But unbeknown to the young patriots that follow this group, it was conceived, established and financed by the Zionists, and its origins can be traced to Mossad and the Israeli army. Next time you speak to someone who says he's in the EDL, just ask him, why does the English Defence League fly the Israeli flag at their rallies? Several Israeli flags. Furthermore, why are the Zionists getting young British men to fight with Muslims, not only in Afghanistan and Iraq, but also on the streets of Britain? The answer goes right back to the protocols, where they said they want to destroy us. They want us to destroy each other. I think we ought to take that very seriously. Those same Zionists are in control of the immigration system. Our government, the EU, and it's them, same people that have flooded this country with foreigners, including Muslims. And now they're here, they want our youngsters to start fighting with them. Just like enslaved gladiators. Now keep in mind, as what I said before, as far as they're concerned, the world is only fit for 500 million people. That means they want to get shut of 90% of us. So if people want to go fighting and killing each other, they're not bothered about that. In fact, they're quite happy. In my view, British people don't need to fight anybody. What we need to do to free our country is get enough people to stand with us. And that's not easy to do, as we all know. But our own members need to stand with us. That's where we need to start. You know, there's less than 5% of our membership who actually get out on the street and say, I'm with the British National Party. Until such a time when all of our members are happy to go along and say, I'm with the British National Party, I'm with the British National Party. It's only at that time when the people who are not with us and not voting for us are going to say, flipping heck, look at all these people. I wouldn't have thought people like them were in the British National Party. I would have thought they were all thugs and knuckle-dragging, muscular types, like, you know. The vast majority of us, 99.9% of us, are just ordinary, down-to-earth people. And they need to see that. But we keep hiding it from them. And people have their reasons, but I've got to say, you know, we need to get over that. I was saying before, what is it going to take for people to wake up? What is it going to take for our own members to get out on the street and let people know who they vote for? That's all you need to do. Also, next time your politically correct friend says, oh, I'm going to vote for UKIP, ask them if they understand UKIP's balanced migration policy. What this means is UKIP is very happy to see 1 million foreigners come into our country in a year, as long as 1 million British people leave. Is that what British people want? I don't think so. But UKIP are very happy with that, so are the Greens. People don't know that. Some people are voting for them. They're only set up to take votes away from us in the first place. So we need to let people know what's going on. Yes, we're full, and they say, oh yeah, Britain's full. Should have a balanced migration system. No, we should shut the doors completely and stop everyone bloody coming in. And also, the ones who shouldn't be here should be sent back to wherever they came from. Anyway, as far as I'm concerned, there's only one party that can save the people of this country, and that's the British National Party. So we all need to let the public see that we're normal people just like them, and they'll join us in droves. Thanks very much.